Hello, incredible soul. Welcome to the Embodied Woman podcast. I am Anna Fink, the Wellness Architect. I'm so grateful you are here with me. I want to share a bit about the powerful portal we have just passed through February 17th, the beginning of a new Chinese astrological year, moving from the wood snake into the year of the fire horse. This is a pivotal moment in time, whereas we celebrate the new year in January on the 1st. We're really not feeling that new energy until February, even March with the equinox, because it used to be in traditional years and calendars that April was the first month, corresponding with the astrological calendar, and Aries being the first astrological sign, the zodiac calendar. So, what does this mean? We were in a deep phase of letting go, of shedding, of releasing old patterns, identities, personas, people, places, work, jobs, things like that that did not align with who we are and who we're becoming, so that we can step powerfully into our purpose, into our power, and rise with the momentum of the year of the fire horse. There's so much here available for us, so much is changing. We're feeling the acceleration of time. And this time is truly a gift. I just celebrated my 31st birthday on the 23rd of February, and with every year that passes, I gain more wisdom, and I love spending time in reflection on my birthday and looking at who I've been, where I've grown, what do I want to set my sights on after reflecting on in hindsight. And that is so powerful for all of us because our birthdays are like a new year for us, a personal new year, if you will. And this is a time to reflect and calibrate. For me, birthdays are so much more than a celebration. They are a calibration portal. They allow us to reflect on who we've been and align with who we desire to become, who we are here to be. And that is the power. So, with this energy of the fire horse, we're feeling like time is accelerating. There's something that's being awoken, awakened in us or shaken in us to get us into our power, to get us into our purpose, because we're not here to just continue to do what we were doing. We're here to rise. There was a lot of shedding, a lot of letting go, a lot of change in 2025 in the year of the wood horse. Now there's this momentum and this alignment with who we are becoming and who we're here to be. This is our time to rise. And as I was reflecting on my last year, it was the most intense year of my life, probably. And the last 6 months of that year were the most intense. My mom was in and out of the hospital in September. Then in October, she moved in with me. She's been living with me in my studio apartment in this space for 5 months. And it's been demanding to caregive full time, to be building my business, to be teaching, to be growing and in community and my purpose. It's been a lot. And I wouldn't trade it because I have grown. And even in the moments where I felt like I was struggling or falling, they were really moments asking me to rise. And I celebrate my birthday quite similarly each year. In the last 3 years, I've been going to the same spa and spending my day solo at the spa. This year, I didn't do an overnight getaway as I usually do, but this year it just felt good to get away, to read, to sunbathe, to journal, to reflect, and to be in my own presence. And intentionally integrate the year past and to set intentions for the year to come, because each year is this full culmination of learning and growing and evolving and then refining, because the hindsight gives us that power. And if you want to reflect and use the power of this time to evolve, to grow. You can look at who have you been? Who have I been this last year? Where am I shrinking, still playing small in my life? And where am I being invited or called to rise? What are the challenges that I've been experiencing this past year that are now giving me the strength and the gifts and the wisdom to lead in the ways that I know I meant to lead? Because this year was challenging for so many of us, and we're all experiencing, but there's so much that was illuminated and clarity came through. So when that came through, I knew that it was my time to rise. Like there were so many months and times leading up to that where I doubted and I didn't know what was to come. I didn't know who I was stepping into. I didn't feel like I was rising. I felt like I was falling. And at the beginning of the year, at that January 1 threshold, I was contemplating and almost forcing myself to come up with a context for my year. And I didn't quite know what it would be. I was thinking of presents, I was thinking of different contexts, but at my birthday, it became clear that my context for my 31st year and for this year of the fire horse is to rise. We in 2025, in the year of the wood snake, we were shedding, we were letting go. And like that phoenix that burns and then rises from the ashes, that is what we're doing. So while last year was the most challenging I've ever lived, and it was so challenging collectively and for so many of you as well, know that you're not alone. While it felt like maybe you were being pressed underwater, or you couldn't keep up and you felt overwhelmed, whatever you felt, the anxiety, the stress, the fear, that doubt, whatever was arising for you, know that it was catalyzing, that pressure was inviting you to rise. Because when something's put under immense pressure, there are two options. We can collapse under the stress of that pressure, or we can rise in a healthy way, meeting the pressure and expanding beyond what we've known and who we've been. Because you're not here to simply survive, you're here to thrive. And that means stepping into your power, into your purpose. And so look back on who you've been and who you've become and celebrate that because everything is changing, everything is rearranging. And as I rise, I remember new levels of power and I meet myself in new ways. But that rising doesn't happen in that way that we anticipate. Rising happens through meeting ourselves. So this is such a powerful time to notice how we are speaking to ourselves. Are we speaking love into ourselves? Are we speaking hate into ourselves? And something I became so clear and aware of in 2025 and had always kind of been aware of was how I was speaking hate into myself, how I was speaking doubt and fear into myself. I was not building myself up. I was blocking myself. I was speaking in a way that was very demeaning and diminishing of me. And one of my mentors recently asked me, are you speaking love or hate into yourself? And as soon as she asked that question, I paused. I felt paralyzed because I knew the answer. Every time I looked in the mirror, every time I did something, every time I tried something, it was not good enough. And I kept going into the perfection and trying to fix and trying to understand what I needed to be doing. So on my birthday, when I was sitting in reflection with myself, I began to understand what I needed to do and who I was becoming so I could become who I'm here to be. I'm back. Mom came into the camera, and so we paused, reset, and here we are. Coming back to the awareness of are you speaking love or are you speaking hate into yourself? That alone will give you so much clarity on if you are the biggest supporter or the biggest hindrance to your dreams. So when we become aware of how we're speaking to ourselves, how we are thinking, the thoughts we are believing, the stories we are telling, we become aware of our creative power. Because in the mirror, when I would look at my reflection, I would say, "Oh, you don't look good," or always criticizing something. But then you see a photo of yourself a few years ago, or even a year ago, or a week ago, or a day ago, whatever it is, and you say, wow, I look so good. How come I couldn't love myself in that moment? Because I was striving for perfection, and that striving for perfection, you just kind of got caught in not seeing yourself. You get caught in not being good enough, in the inadequacy, and in seeing your life and yourself through lack and inadequacy, and then you shrink. And speaking hate into ourselves literally compromises our confidence. And if you look at the impact of frequency on water, Dr. Masaru Emoto's research shows how water responds to different frequencies of love and joy versus hate and fear. And when you begin to do that and you become aware of how you're speaking to yourself, you become aware of that impact and how you feel about yourself in general. It's so enlightening because then you can change it. But if you don't see it, you can't change it because you can't change that which you do not yet see. So we want to first become aware. Are we speaking love or hate into ourselves, and then notice, how are our thoughts, how are our beliefs, how are we speaking to and about ourselves, about our lives, about our bodies, about our health, about our business, about our career, about our relationships. That is so insightful because there's this frequency ripple that is influenced by every thought, which then influences our emotion, which then influences our actions, which then can create this perpetuating cycle or a confirmation bias of feeling like, well, I'm not adequate, I'm not doing enough. And then we criticize ourselves and say it's not good enough. And then we don't take action and we start to feel poorly about ourselves. And then that perpetuates more paralysis and more procrastination. And it breeds the same festering loop. So while I was away for my birthday, I began to become so aware that I had not been loving myself. And so my context for this year is to rise, but to rise and to move rooted in self-love, to learn and master the art of self-love, because loving ourselves isn't just about bubble baths and self-care and all of that. Loving ourselves is evident in how we show up for ourselves, how we speak to ourselves, how we care for ourselves, our bodies. And it's evident through our language, our stories. And if we're living for us in our dreams, or if we're showing up for others and compromising ourselves and lowering our standards. Because true self-love isn't just rose petals and bubble baths. It's standards, it's discipline, it's devotion, it's honoring our word to ourselves. It's honoring our needs and meeting our own needs and showing up for ourselves. So as you begin to become aware, you can begin to invoke love into yourself, to invoke belief rather than critique, and to give yourself the love and that which you give so freely to others. True self-love is about reclaiming your sovereignty. It's about honoring yourself, not because everyone else is asking you for your attention and you're negating your own needs, you're neglecting yourself. It's just knowing that when you show up for yourself first, others respond and they receive more after you've given to yourself. So, to couple this, I want to give you an embodied wellness experience and practice, because it's one thing to know something, and we've all heard that we should love ourselves, and we've all heard that it begins within and it begins with us, and the outside world is reflecting that which is internal. But if we're not actively engaging with the information, we're not experiencing the transformation. And so what I want to invite you to do is to do this practice in the mirror. And there's a book by Louise Hay called 21 Days of Mirror Work. So you're going to look at yourself in the mirror, and you're going to look at yourself in the eyes and say, I love you. And just notice how you feel, what arises. I know the first time that I did this, I started to cry. I felt and sensed a deep void and ache within me. And then when I started to do this more and more every day, I'd look in the mirror and I would speak love into myself, and I would do these different affirmations and code frequencies into my existence in my own field. That made me feel more confident. So it begins with loving yourself, noticing what happens when you begin to speak love into yourself and how you feel, and then become aware of your thoughts, of your beliefs, of the stories you're telling, and how that impacts not just your body, but your mind, your health, and your life. And watch what begins to shift in your confidence, your posture, your decisions, because the way you speak to yourself determines the way you rise. And this is the year that I am choosing and claiming to rise. Not because everything is perfect and I have this perfect stable foundation, but because the challenges are the catalysts. Knowing that we will continue to face challenges as we expand our capacity. One of my mentors says, just because it's hard doesn't mean it's heavy. It means that it's heavy and still we are carrying it. So this is our time to rise, rooted in ourself, rooted in our truth, and rooted in self-love. And now it's time for us to pour into ourselves, because when we nurture ourselves and we root into ourselves, we can rise with more strength, conviction, and power to love ourselves and then extend that love to others, rather than loving others, seeking their love in a in return or their approval in return. And perhaps if you are here, you are someone who has given and overgiven, extended and overextended yourself. And now it's time to redirect your focus back to yourself, to reclaim your power, to reclaim your energy, and to learn to rise in love. Because self love is not selfish, it is sovereign. It's the foundation for your life. And when you create that foundation of unshakable, devoted self love, you become unstoppable. This is a year we choose ourselves. This is a year we choose to rise, to meet ourselves, to meet new levels of ourselves, and to speak love where there was once criticism, where we rise fully and unapologetically into who we are and who we are becoming. I'm so glad, so grateful you are here. And I am so excited to watch you rise. There's someone in your life who could use this encouragement in these words. Please share this with them. I'd love to know how this impacted you and what it inspired, what it provoked within your own body and your life. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to speaking with you so soon.